Hi guys, welcome to the first lesson for chapter 7. We'll be continuing to do our gathering evidence worksheet, but this time we have some fill in the blank notes before we begin. So let's take a look at your chapter 7 notes. We see in bold our literary term characterization. Now I'm hopeful that you have already completed your interactive characterization notes with me in class. If not, you're going to have to listen carefully. And either way, even if you filled them in, they might look just a little bit different. So let's take a look at this long information that we see here. We see the method in which an author blanked a character. It includes blank appearance, characters blank, and what other characters blank about, or how they blank to the character. So let's take some time to fill these in. I'm going to put my cursor in here, which is going to completely screw it up. If you're typing yours as well, you'll see the lines will move along, and I'll work on not putting some of those in there. So the method in which an author develops a character, delete some of that for you. It includes blank appearance. What type of appearance? Do you remember we wrote it down? We did write this in our notes. Physical appearance. Characters, whoops. Actions. Characters. So there was a picture, characters' words. And what other characters, so first of all, if we are characterizing our main character, Meg, we would be looking at what she looks like, things she does. Remember, I think there was a picture of a hand, her actions, and the words that she says. But in addition to that, we get how other characters respond to that. So what other characters blank about, say about. So Meg says certain things about herself, but Kelvin says very different things about her. So it would adjust the little bit of the characterization and how they react to the character. So let's see if this makes sense. The method in which an author develops a character, it includes physical appearance, characters' actions, characters' words, and what other characters say about or how they react to the character. So now we have an idea of the way that an author is going to develop characters. And it's not only our main character that the author would do this for. Obviously, Charles Wallace was developed pretty well. Some characters are developed more than others. Those are our round characters. And then some characters are kind of flat. We don't get a lot of information on them. So our next character that we're going to meet in chapter 7, just realized I stopped sharing my screen, but really I wanted to scroll down. Let me go back here. Leads us into our prompt. So it tells us for number 1 to characterize the man with the red eyes. So this character doesn't even have a name. We just know of him as the man with the red eyes. So we want to think about, obviously, some physical appearance. We can assume that he has red eyes. What else are we going to learn? What does he look like is one question. How does he act? And then the key part that goes along with this is also the other characters' reactions. How does Charles Wallace interpret his actions? So remember, Charles Wallace is very intuitive. He's able to pick up on people and what they're like. So how does he interpret the things for the man with the red eyes? And then what does his speech indicate about his behavior? That's kind of a tricky one. So the way in which the man with the red eyes speaks is going to tell us something about him as well. So first of all, in our directions, just like we had done in the past, question 1, what will you be gathering evidence about? Underline the focusing questions in the prompt above. Take a moment to do that, either now or whenever, if you're going to pause, but make sure that that's done before your paper is turned in. Number 2, what information will need to be able, what information will you need to be able to answer the guiding question, explain your answer. Look carefully at the graphic organizer on the back side of this paper and determine with Mrs. Weber what information will go into the chart and where you will find it. So we've talked about this quite a bit. This is the third time that we're doing this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But remember, the detail evidence, we're going to be filling in quotes. I want a quote for his physical appearance, a quote for the red man's eyes, or I'm sorry, a quote about the red man with the red eyes speech. So either something that he says or about how he speaks. A quote about the man with the red eyes actions, so something that he does. And a quote about Charles Wallace's reaction to the man with the red eyes. That doesn't include all of the types of characterization, but it includes most of them. Where do quotes and evidence come from? The book. Page. What page does it come? Where does that come from? Obviously, also the book. This box here, then, you have your inference and reasoning, what these ideas reveal about his character. I'm sorry, and it shouldn't actually say in the conflict. I believe it's just about the red man's eyes, the man with the red eyes this time. So I may end up deleting that before you see yours. This is your thinking. This comes from your brain. This is you being able to explain what the man with the red eyes is like. What do those quotes mean? When you write your written answer, which is going to be a paragraph this time, all about the man with the red eyes, you're going to put a little check mark or a yes that I used that quote and or that explanation. All right, we're going to take a look back up at number 3. Listen carefully as the chapter is read aloud. Watch for information that will help you complete the graphic organizer. During the read aloud, every time you hear some evidence from the text that you think belongs on the chart, perhaps raise your hand or pause the video, write it down. If we have time, we will discuss that evidence. And if you're working remotely, pay attention to the video. I am going to back off just a little bit this time. I'm not going to be typing answers into the chart. I may pause and go, is that a good one? I might raise my hand if I've got something underlined in my book, but I'm going to kind of keep moving along, and I'm going to put it on you to gather that information that you need. Pause the video when you need to, record things that you need, okay? If you are comfortable with this and you want to read this on your own, I will give you that choice. If you want to turn the video off, like Mrs. Weber is so annoying when she reads, you can read it on your own. For many of you, it's helpful to hear me read it to you. But we're getting to the point where I need to back off on reading. I do that in the beginning to get you interested and excited about the book. And hopefully we have reached a point where you want to continue to read. If not, keep listening to me then. This book is also pretty challenging. So hopefully as I go through the videos, you're able to understand as I stop and explain some of those things. All right, so in our books, oh, I only have the yellow one handy. I'm sorry, so I don't have the page number ready. Page 114 in the yellow book, and if you have the black book, find the beginning of chapter 7. We knew we were going to be in danger, Charles Wallace said. Mrs. Whatsit told us that. Yes, and she told us that it was going to be worse for you than for Meg and me, and that you must be careful. You stay right here with Meg, old sport, and let me go in and case the joint and then report to you. No, Charles Wallace said firmly. She told us to stay together. She told us not to go off by ourselves. She told you not to go off by yourself. I'm the oldest, and I should go in first. No, Meg's voice was flat. Charles is right, Cal. We have to stay together. Suppose you didn't come out, and we had to go in after you. Come on, but let's hold hands if you don't mind. Holding hands, they crossed the square. The huge Central Intelligence Building had only one door, but it was an enormous one, at least 2 stories high and wider than a room made of dull bronze-like metal. Do we just knock? Meg giggled. Calvin studied the door. There isn't any handle or knob or latch or anything. Maybe there's another way to get in. Let's try knocking anyhow, Charles said. He raised his hand, but before he touched the door, it slid up from the top into each side, splitting into 3 sections that had been completely invisible a moment before. The startled children looked into a great entrance hall of dull, greeny marble. Marble benches lined 3 of the walls. People were sitting there like statues. The green of the marble reflecting on their faces made them look bilious. They turned their heads as the door opened, saw the children, looked away again. "Come on," Charles said, and still holding hands, they stepped in. As they crossed the threshold, the door shut silently behind them. Meg looked at Kelvin and Charles, and they, like the waiting people, were a sickly green. I don't know why, but this makes me think of the Wizard of Oz. So we've got 3 characters holding hands going into this gigantic place, and it's all in green. Are they going to see the wizard? Not really. The children went up to the blank 4th wall. It seemed unsubstantial, as though one might almost be able to walk through it. Charles put out his hand. It's solid and icy cold. Kelvin touched it too. Oh. Meg's left hand was held by Charles, her right hand by Kelvin, and she had no desire to let go either of them to touch the wall. "Let's ask somebody something." Charles led them over to one of the benches. Could you tell us what's the procedure around here?" he asked one of the men. The men all wore nondescript business suits, and though their features were as different one from the other as the features of men on Earth, there was also a sameness to them. Like the sameness of people riding in a subway, Meg thought. Only on a subway, every once in a while, there's somebody different, and here there isn't. The man looked at the children warily. "The procedure for what?" "How do we see whoever's in authority?" Charles asked. "You present your papers to the A machine. You ought to know that," the man said severely. "Where is the A machine?" Kelvin asked. The man pointed to the blank wall. "There isn't a door or anything," Kelvin said. "How do we get in?" "You put your S papers in the B slot," the man said. "Why are you asking me these stupid questions? Do you think I don't know the answers? You better not play any games around here, or you'll have to go through the process machine again, and you don't want to do that." "We're strangers here," Kelvin said. "That's why we don't know about things. Please tell us, sir, who you are and what you do." Now, those of you watching the video, this is going to be on your quiz, so pay attention, make sure you understand it. I run a #1 spelling machine on the 2nd grade level. What do you think he means? #1 spelling machine on the 2nd grade level. Is he a teacher? But he's running the machine for the 2nd graders? "But what are you doing here now?" Charles Wallace asked. "I am here to report that one of my letters is jamming, and until it can be properly oiled by an F-grade oiler, there is danger in jammed minds." Can I run you guys through a machine and teach you how to spell? That'd be cool. "Strawberry jam or raspberry," Charles Wallace murmured. Calvin looked down at Charles and shook his head warningly. Meg gave the little boy's hand a slight understanding pressure. Charles Wallace, she was quite sure, was not trying to be rude or funny. It was his way of whistling in the dark. The man looked at Charles sharply. "I think I shall have to report you. I'm fond of children due to the nature of my work, and I don't like to get them in trouble. But rather than run the risk myself of reprocessing, I must report you." "Maybe that's a good idea," Charles said. "Who do you report us to?" "To whom do I report you?" "Well, to whom then? I'm not on the 2nd grade level yet." I wish he wouldn't act so sure of himself, Meg thought, looking anxiously at Charles and holding his hand more and more tightly until he wriggled his fingers in protest. That's what Mrs. Whatsit said he had to watch, being proud. "Don't, please don't," she thought hard at Charles Wallace. She wondered if Calvin realized that a lot of the arrogance was bravado. Bravado is him trying to be brave. The man stood up, moving jerkily as though he had been sitting for a long time. I hope he isn't too hard on you, he murmured as he led the children toward the empty fourth wall. But I've been reprocessed once, and that was more than enough. And I don't want to get sent to it. I've never been sent to it, and I can't risk having that happen. There was it again. What was this it? The man took from his pocket a folder filled with papers of every color. He shuffled through them carefully, finally withdrawing one. I've had several reports to make lately. I shall have to ask for a requisition for more A21 cards. He took the card and put it against the wall. It slid through the marble, as though it were being sucked in, and disappeared. You may be detained for a few days, the man said, but I'm sure they won't be too hard on you because of your youth. Just relax and don't fight, and it will all be much easier for you. He went back to his seat, leaving the children standing and staring at the blank wall. And suddenly, the wall was no longer there, and they were looking into an enormous room lined with machines. They were not unlike the great computing machines Meg had seen in her science books, and that she knew her father sometimes worked with. Some did not seem to be in use. In others, lights were flickering on and off. In one machine, a long tape was being eaten. In another, a series of dot dashes were being punched. Several white-robed attendants were moving about, tending the machines. If they saw the children, they gave no sign. So I want to pause for just a second to remind you, the book was written in the 1960s, just as the first computers were starting to come about. That is nothing like the computer that I'm currently looking into, which is rather small. They took up entire rooms. So that's what they're thinking of, is these types of technology in the 1960s. And in this context, that's pretty impressive. Okay. Kelvin muttered something. What? Meg asked him. There is nothing to fear except fear itself, Kelvin said. I'm quoting, like Mrs. Who. I'm scared stiff. So am I. Meg held his hand more tightly. Come on. They stepped into the room with the machines. In spite of the enormous width of the room, it was even longer than it was wide. Perspective made the long rows of machines seem almost to meet. The children walked down the center of the room, keeping as far from the machines as possible. Though I don't suppose they're radioactive or anything, Charles Wallace said, or that they're going to reach out and grab us and chew us up. After they had walked for what seemed like miles, they could see that the enormous room did have an end, and that at the end there was something. Charles Wallace said suddenly, and his voice held panic. Don't let go of my hands. Hold me tight. He's trying to get at me. Who? Meg squeezed. I don't know, but he's trying to get in at me. I can feel him. So just like Charles can probe into other people's minds, kind of, something is trying to get in at Charles's mind. And he can feel it. Let's go back. Kelvin started to pull away. No, Charles Wallace said, I have to go on. We have to make decisions, and we can't make them if we're based on fear. If they're based on fear. His voice sounded old and strange and remote. Meg, clasping his small hand tightly, could feel it sweating in hers. As they approached the end of the room, their steps slowed. Before them was a platform. On the platform was a chair, and on the chair was a man. What was there about him that seemed to contain all the coldness and darkness they had felt as they plunged through the black thing on their way to this planet? I have been waiting for you, my dears, the man said. His voice was kind and gentle, not at all the cold and frightening voice Meg had expected. It took her a moment to realize that the voice came from the man. He had not opened his mouth or moved his lips at all. That no real words had been spoken to fall upon her ears. That he had somehow communicated directly into their brains. So I don't know if hands are going up yet. We don't even know if this is the man with the red eyes, but I will let you know it is. So that is one detail that you could possibly use. I'm going to pause the lesson here because we're right at about the 20-minute mark. And because we're just now getting into the man with the red eyes, I'll have that start the next lesson so that you can take time to take notes. All right, so I'm going to say goodbye for now. See you in a few minutes.